hard to finish from there. He's going to need to have something special because Larratt's coming round and he's engaging the press.
Hey everybody, Iron Arm here. And today we're going to be creating a tier list of the best arm wrestling exercises. Starting off with wrist extensions in D tier. Wrist extensions are nearly useless on the table and only really good to focus on for your wrist health. Strengthening your wrist extension shouldn't be a priority, as even when you are kicking back your wrist, there's nothing really fighting it. Next, supination in D tier. Supination does assist you on the table with setting in that hook, but like with wrist extension, it typically is not challenged. Typically, the counter to supination is not to fight it, so strengthening it is not very important. Otherwise, once again, like wrist extensions, it is pretty good for recovery, but that's about it. Next up, we have rows in C tier. Rows are good for your back strength, but their arm involvement is very low. Because of this, they don't transfer very well to the table. A simple explanation for a simple lift. Next up, we're going to be looking at reverse curls. Reverse curls are really good for that brachioradialis, but it simulates more of a bad position on the table. While you are pronated in reverse curls, you're actually overpronated, which means you're in a position that you would never want to end up on the table. In fact, I'd even go to say the reverse curl position is one of the worst positions you can be on the table, and that if you ever end up in this position, it's better to concede if you can. For that reason, I can't put it up any higher than C tier. Next up on the lift is bench press. Being a pressing motion, it is obviously good for any sort of press you're going to be doing on the table. The strength gains you get from bench is great for side pressure, as one of the main movements of your chest is to pull that arm in closer to your body. Next up, we got pull-ups in B tier. Pull-ups are easily accessible and can be done nearly anywhere, and they also are a great movement for arm wrestling. But because of the fact that they are hard to load once you become good at them, I can't place them any higher than this. Now we have bicep curls in B tier. The most classic bicep builder. It's a no-brainer that this is going to strengthen your arms. Good biceps are extremely helpful when it comes to a hook, and in nearly every defensive position, you're going to end up on your bicep. Without good biceps, a lot of other strengths will not matter. But due to the fact that you typically do not want to be placed in a supinated position, I will not be placing this higher than B tier. Next up, in A tier, hammer curls. Simply put, this is the best curl variation you can get for arm wrestling. The hammer curl is a very similar mimic to the center position on an arm wrestling table. It is vital that you are strong in that position. If you had to choose one curl variation to specialize in, this one would be it. Next up in A tier, we have lat pull downs. Lat pull downs is just a better form of pull-ups. While not as accessible as pull-ups, the ability to easily add weight means that you can stay in a effective rep range for arm wrestling easier, which is typically less than 10 reps. Next up in A tier, we have back pressure. Back pressure is one of the most common arm wrestling lifts to train. The reason why I haven't placed the back pressure lift any higher is due to the fact that you can hit very similar vectors in the pronation lift, and there's just truly no point to having a good back pressure if your pronation cannot keep up. At the very top of A tier, we have rise. Rise is key for opening the fingers of your opponent and gaining leverage. Rise acts as the ultimate assist move, notably aiding with a top roll. It plays a big factor in being able to crack the wrist of a strong opponent. With that being said, I think these next few lifts just nudge it out of S tier. Starting off in S tier, we have side pressure. Side pressure is the key offensive pressure used. Nearly every time you're on the offensive, some sort of side pressure is being applied. Not to mention, if you want to pull without that wrist, it is essentially your only option. Next up in S tier, we have the pronation lift. Pronation is key for a top roll and to defeat your opponent's wrist flexion when they go for a hook. If you can keep your pronation intact, you can prevent your bicep from being isolated. On top of that, any good pronation lift will also be targeting your back pressure. This makes it essentially the key lift if you want to be a top roller. That being said, there's still one lift above all else. In S plus tier, we have cupping. There is almost no positions where being able to cup your wrist in will not help. Top of that, it is almost necessary to use if you're going to be going against a flop pressure. This is all without mentioning that cupping is the key to the high hook variation of the top rope, which is possibly the best move in all of arm wrestling. That was my arm wrestling lifts tier list. Let me know down in the comments below if it would change anything. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and that's about it. See ya.